I saw a television show recently called Saturday Night Live, Mr. President. They have the habit of putting on humorous pretend commercials that look like real commercials.
That was Al Gore, the Democratic senator from Tennessee and future vice president, explaining Saturday Night Live. It was April 5th, 1990. At that point, SNL had been on the air 15 years. Now, Saturday Night Live is marking its 50th anniversary, and that has lots of people talking about the show's influence on comedy, on culture, on television, on America, and, well, on human civilization. We'll leave all that highfalutin, half-century, big-picture stuff to others. Instead, in this episode of C-SPAN's Podcast The Weekly, we focus on something far more specific and closer to home, the impact Saturday Night Live has had on the U.S. Congress.
Open the champagne, pop the cork. The Senate Democrat leader and the Republican leader are on their way to Kiev. They've got $60 billion they're bringing. I don't know if it'll be cash in pallets, but they're taking your money to Kiev.
Republican Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, February 12, 2024, seeming to mimic the sing-song voice of the Richmeister, the making copies guy, a long ago Saturday Night Live fan favorite. Another SNL impression, September 24, 2013, from Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz.
Teddy Roosevelt was once giving a speech, and he was shot during the speech. And he finished the speech before seeking medical attention. Now that, there was an old episode on Saturday Night Live. For the pages, y'all have probably never seen this. But an old episode that was, ¿Quién es más macho? Who is more macho? You know what? Teddy Roosevelt, él es más macho. You get shot in a speech, you stand there and finish the speech, you win. Even Sean Connery's looking at him going, wow, that guy's tough.
There was a time over 3 decades ago when Mr. Subliminal had a good run on Saturday Night Live. Mr. Subliminal was a character Kevin Nealon played on Weekend Update. His recurring bit inspired an impression from California Republican Congressman David Drier, February 17, 1993.
Mr. Speaker, more than a few of us in this chamber are aficionados of a television program known as Saturday Night Live. My friend from San Diego, Mr. Hunter, even tells me that he's seen it one time. And it seems to me that as we look at a number of the characters there, a very appropriate one has come forward. A guy called Kevin Nealon, when he does the news at midnight, fulfills the role of a guy called Subliminal Man. And as I listen to some of the terminology that's come forward over the past several days, I can't help but think of how Subliminal Man would deal with this. I could hear him say, has a job, rich, shared sacrifice, tax, contribution, tax, patriotism, tax, and investment, spend.
If they think a bit goes well, SNL often does it a second time, just like Congressman Drier, March 2nd, 1993.
Mr. Speaker, a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to take this well and describe how Subliminal Man, that character on Saturday Night Live, would have responded to some of the rhetoric that we've heard from President Clinton. Things like he'd say contribution, tax, investment spend, things like that. Well, the president has been attempting to build this grassroots base of support over the past several weeks for his programs. A number of my friends of mine have even gotten calls from the Democratic National Committee encouraging them to call our offices with words of support. Well, not surprisingly, the DNC was able to get through to the studios of Saturday Night Live, but they enlisted the wrong person by getting Subliminal Man to call my office. The message that I got that came in yesterday said to me, I urge you to enact the president's plan to stimulate the economy, more spending, and reduce the deficit, middle-class taxes. It's time to break the backs of special interests, American taxpayers, and require the rich, anyone with a job, to pay their fair share. I support the proposed tax on BTUs beyond taxpayers' understanding because it will conserve energy along gas lines and create jobs, make work. We need a new direction, tax and spend, and the best way all of us can do this is by supporting procedures that prevent partisan debate, closed rules. The Subliminal Man, Mr. Speaker, couldn't have made it more clearly if his statement had been written by David Broder.
Suspend from speaking and take his seat.
And sometimes SNL brings a bit back a third time, just like Congressman Drier, March 17th, 1993.
Mr. Speaker, this so-called emergency stimulus package is proof that the English language has been twisted by Washington's spin doctors well beyond recognition. Words like emergency, stimulus, jobs, and investment have lost all meaning. We know that Saturday Night Live's subliminal man would get to the point by saying all four of those words mean nothing more than spend.
You might have noticed in those three clips Congressman Drier incorrectly calling Mr. Subliminal Man. On August 3, 1993, Republican from Ohio Martin Hoke got closer to getting the name right.
Mr. Speaker, when I saw that secret White House memo on how to sell President Clinton's budget plan to the media and the American people, I couldn't help but think of Saturday Night Live's Mr. Subliminal Man. Now let's see, how would Mr. Subliminal Man read this extraordinary memo? Hallelujah, change is here. Taxes. This is good and this is change. Taxes. While you will doubtless be pressed by the media for details beyond these principles, taxes, there is nothing wrong with demurring for the moment on the technicalities, taxes, and educating, lying, the American people and the media on the historic change we need, taxes. Never forget that optimism, taxes, energy, taxes, and enthusiasm, taxes, you project is vital.
On October 29, 2013, an SNL cold open about Obamacare caught the attention of Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell.
And the real tragedy here is that many who've succeeded are finding out the product is actually worse than the website. I mean, the only thing the website seems to be good at right now is creating punchlines for late-night comedians. It's almost like Americans are being forced to live through a real live Saturday Night Live sketch. And if you're caught at last week's opener, well, it's getting harder to tell the Obamacare headlines from the Obamacare punchlines these days.
In 2001, on her last day as Attorney General, Janet Reno appeared on Saturday Night Live. She played alongside Will Ferrell in his recurring bit, Janet Reno's Dance Party. That cameo caught the attention of Ohio Democrat Jim Traficant, March 21st, 2001.
Mr. Speaker, America is in danger. China just built their third missile base, and North Korea referred to Uncle Sam as an aggressor. Think about it. We're now looking down the fangs of a dragon. China's going after Taiwan. North Korea is escalating tensions, and Janet Reno is doing Saturday Night Live. Beam me up here.
An appearance by comedian Steve Martin caught the attention of Ohio Republican Congressman Steve Chabot, September 9th, 1997.
Mr. Speaker, as America's school children head back to school, I'm reminded of an old Steve Martin routine on Saturday Night Live. I'm talking about the skit in which Steve Martin tries to explain away his breaking the law by saying, "I forgot armed robbery was a crime." Mr. Speaker, teachers are used to all the lame excuses they get from students, why they didn't do their homework, why they were late for class, why they weren't able to study for a test. But the excuses coming out of the White House about all the fundraising irregularities, they'd make even Steve Martin laugh.
Now we get to Al Gore. The senator and vice president has had a history with Saturday Night Live, most notably based on his October 3, 2000 presidential debate with George Bush. That's when Al Gore mentioned lockbox 7 times. Here's 2 of them.
I think we need to put Medicare and Social Security in a lockbox. The governor will not put Medicare in a lockbox.
Darrell Hammond famously skewered Al Gore over lockbox, portraying him as an overeager know-it-all. You may have seen that. Democratic Illinois Senator Dick Durbin did, January 15th, 2003.
Do you remember the Saturday Night Live routine? I do, where Al Gore during the campaign was being chided for always talking about the lockbox. And people were wondering, what is this politician raving about? A lockbox. What could this mean? Well, it was a shorthand term used on the floor of the Senate over and over again by Democrats and Republicans to suggest that we were creating a lockbox for Social Security.
Al Gore might have been fodder for SNL mockery, but he was also a viewer. We know that because on November 14th, 1991, as a senator, Al Gore cited a joke.
Fishermen report getting blind salmon out of the streams. Farmers report that this spring, and it's springtime down there, you know, of course the seasons are reversed, and this is their springtime, that buds on the trees are deformed. One of the comedians on Saturday Night Live, A. Whitney Brown, had a line a couple years ago about some of these global environmental issues. He said, it sounds like you're taking a nature hike through the book of Revelations.
Senator Al Gore also cited the show on April 5th, 1990, along with a helpful explanation.
I saw a television show recently called Saturday Night Live, Mr. President. They have the habit of putting on humorous pretend commercials that look like real commercials. And in this particular commercial, they brought out a new consumer device about the size of two of these desks. And it was called the Catapulto, modeled on a medieval catapult, downsized, with the same kind of spring-operated arm that would throw things. And the use was, according to this make-believe commercial, for the homeowner to take his garbage out, and instead of worrying about a landfill or an incinerator or paying some garbage company to come and pick it up, he just put it in the Catapulto and pulled the lever, and it went flying over his backyard into the neighbor's yard 2 houses down. And by the end of the commercial, his neighbors had gotten these devices as well, and the garbage bags were flying across backyard fences throughout the neighborhood. I found it to be very funny.
And a comedy fact check on what Al Gore said. It wasn't a Catapulto. In that season 15 commercial featuring Kevin Nealon, it was called Yardapult. And speaking of comedy fact checks, do you know what Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Barney Frank got wrong on September 14th, 2011?
Madam Speaker, I'm a great fan of the tradition of comedy in America. And I want to salute my Republican colleagues for this tribute to one of our great comedians who died tragically early, Gilda Radner, who in the early days of Saturday Night Live invented the character of Rosanna Dana, who would get on the news segment and say something outlandish, and then when she was corrected, her response was, "Never mind." This is the never mind resolution that the Republicans have brought forward.
What was wrong with that? The Gilda Radner character Barney Frank cited wasn't Rosanna Dana. It was Emily Latella. As Emily Latella might say about Barney Frank, never mind. What's even more notable about Barney Frank getting it wrong on September 14th, 2011, is that on November 16th, 1999, he got it right.
And less than 2 years later, well, I take it back, 2 years later, the caps are gone, they're dead, and they die unmourned, they die unnoticed. With regard to the 1997 Act, 1999 is the year of Emily Latella. Never mind. Never mind that we put these caps on. Never mind that we cut Medicare.
Republican Texas Senator John Cornyn also invoked Emily Latella, May 24th, 2005.
When I was in college and law school, there was a character played by the actress Gilda Radner on Saturday Night Live, who was known best for the fact that she would purport to do the news and engage in this screed about some subject, and then she would be corrected only to have her then reply, "Never mind." I thought about that when I have contemplated the occurrences of the last few days, particularly the last day, when it came to the sort of apocalyptic terms that were used as we approached breaking the logjam over the president's long-delayed judicial nominees.
What was Rosanna Dana's catchphrase? New York Democratic Congressman Tom Downey got it right on September 17th, 1991.
Once again, we see the Republicans adopting a strategy from contemporary culture. This time it's the Saturday Night Live personality Rosanna Dana, who made famous the idea that it was always something that was wrong with your proposal.
Oh, one more comedy fact check. From September 9th, 2003, on the Senate floor, here's Democrat from Delaware, Joe Biden.
And I will bet the president anything he wishes to bet that at the end of his term, defeated or reelected, on Election Day 2004, this will be the first administration since Herbert Hoover not to create one single solitary net new job. As he used to say, that guy in Saturday Night Live, ain't that special?
Of course, that guy saying ain't that special was actually the church lady saying isn't that special. Finally, no podcast about Congress and Saturday Night Live would be complete without mentioning that one senator worked on the show. Talking about that former SNL actor and writer and a whole lot more about the show, September 9th, 2014, here again, Ted Cruz.
You know, I serve on the Constitution Subcommittee with the senator from Minnesota, who, before being a senator, was a very, very talented comedic actor and comedic writer on Saturday Night Live. I grew up watching Saturday Night Live. I love Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live, over the years, has had some of the most tremendous political satire for decades. Who can forget Chevy Chase tripping and falling over just about everything? Who can forget portrayals Dana Carvey's George Herbert Walker Bush, not gonna do it? Who can forget Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, Al Gore? Who can forget, in 2008, Saturday Night Live's wickedly funny characterization of the Republican vice presidential nominee, Sarah Palin? It was wickedly funny and also had a profoundly powerful effect on people's assessment of Governor Palin, who's a friend of mine.
The senator that Republican Cruz was talking about, Democrat Al Franken. In his book, Giant of the Senate, Al Franken wrote, "I like Ted Cruz more than most of my other colleagues like Ted Cruz, and I hate Ted Cruz." 3 months later, on December 11th, 2014, Al Franken talked about both jobs.
A lot of people ask me, is being a senator as much fun as working on Saturday Night Live? And the answer, of course, is no. It's not close. But it's the best job I've ever had.
In his early comedy days, Al Franken had a long-time comedy partnership with Tom Davis. When Tom Davis died, Al Franken went to the Senate floor to remember him. July 25th, 2012. He detailed one of the most legendary and hilarious SNL skits ever.
Now, as a writing team, Tom and I brought different strengths to our craft. Sometimes we'd get stuck, and Tom would find an object. The third year of SNL, Tom and I were watching TV, and we saw Julia Child cut herself while doing a cooking segment on, I think it was the Today Show. So we wrote a sketch that Danny performed brilliantly that is now known as Julia Child bleeding to death. The sketch worked so well that when they installed the Julia Child exhibit at the National Museum of American History, in addition to her TV kitchen set, I think this was at her insistence because she loved it so much, they included a monitor with the sketch of her bleeding to death on Saturday Night Live. Now, when Tom and I were writing the sketch, we could not find an ending. And Tom found an object, the phone hanging on the wall of Julia Child's cooking set. And I don't actually think there was one. Tom just found it. That's something improv artists do when they are on the stage. They find objects to work with. So Danny, as Julia Child in the sketch, is spurting blood, and Julia is trying everything, explaining how to make a tourniquet out of a chicken bone and a dish towel, only that doesn't work, and how to use the chicken liver as a natural coagulant. And nothing is working. She's losing blood. So in desperation, she sees the phone on the wall and turning it to, she says, always have the emergency number written down on the phone. Oh, it isn't. Well, I know what it is. It's 911. She punches 911 and then she realizes it's a prop phone and throws it down, sort of in disgust. And then she's getting woozy and then starts rambling on about eating chopped liver, chicken chopped liver, on crackers, on a Ritz cracker, I think it was, as a child. And finally, she collapses, and as she's about to die, she says, one more, save the liver. It was a tour de force by Danny, and when I was with Danny and Tom a couple weeks ago, we started talking about this somehow, and Danny said that he remembers me there under the counter pumping the blood. Only I wasn't the one pumping the blood, it was Tom. And I remember that that was something of a union issue because that's a special effect, pumping blood. Pumping the blood to get it exactly the right pressure so that Danny could release the spurts at precisely the right time. Now, every once in a while, the special effects guy or the sound effects guy would let a writer do the effect because it was all about the timing, the comedic timing. And also, they liked Tom. Everybody liked Tom. And the special effects guy knew that Tom knew exactly what to do. And it was all about teamwork with Danny, who was also controlling the spurting while Tom was controlling the pressure. And man, it was hilarious. Now, this is live TV.
And now, a bonus clip. We've heard representatives and senators cite Saturday Night Live characters and bits. But do they ever use the floor of Congress to suggest their own ideas for a knee-slapping SNL skit? Yes! Here's one example. December 11, 2013. On the Senate floor, South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham.
I can only imagine writing the Constitution today. I always thought that would be a good Saturday Night Live skit to go back to Philadelphia Hall and have all the satellite trucks parked outside and the bloggers and the talk radio, moveon.org, you just fill in the blank, putting pressure on our founding fathers not to do this or not to do that.
No record of that idea ever making it to late night comedy. That's it for this episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly. And actually, this was the first of a two-parter on SNL in Congress. Next, in part 2, we'll talk about the most famous Saturday Night Live moment ever in the history of Congress, and it happened inside Congress. What was it? Here's a hint. You'll find out in the next episode of C-SPAN's The Weekly. For now, thanks for listening and happy searching.